Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to Gettin Savvy in Health, Wealth, and Beauty. Important to note that everything is for entertainment purposes only. Please do speak and meet with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. And also, please meet and speak with your GP before making any health or beauty decisions. All right, Melissa, we are recording. It's a Sunday evening because I was in New York. So sorry about that. It was Friday was our only kind of free day to walk the streets and stuff. So
So did you do any good shopping in New York?
I will tell you, well, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we popped into some phenomenal stores, of course. We went to Bergdorf's, which was stunning. And I did buy, something little. But, there's just so much there. There's so many offerings. That I didn't want to spend my time shopping. I want to spend my time walking the streets, going to the Bergdorf Cafe, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's funny. So I haven't been to New York for, I guess, a couple of years now. And I was at a party last weekend, and the theme of the party, it was a girl's bat mitzvah party. The theme was New York. And
Right.
so they had all these installations that were sort of iconic New York things geared to kids, right? So they had like Dylan's Candy Bar, they had like Sadelle's, they had the Slue Slime Museum, and then they had these Broadway performers singing musical theater, and I love musical theater, and I was like, "I need to go to New York. I need to go." Like, it's
Oh.
like, I love going. So anyhow, I think I'm gonna plan a trip.
Well, you have to. And so one of the things we did
Mm,
do was we went to Radio City Music Hall, the Christmas Spectacular.
yes.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you've ever been. Have you been?
No, I've never been. I've seen it on TV, but I've never been.
It's the best thing
Mm,
in the world.
yeah.
I know that's a big statement, but we used to live in Philadelphia when I was younger, and we went when I was about 10 years old or so, and I've never forgotten it. And it's still so magical and incredible. And we went a couple years ago, we went again this year. And honestly, when I was leaving it, they don't do an intermission, which I kind of like as well. I could watch that like 10 nights in a row, honestly. It was so great, but the other one that is really great, and I wanna go back and see, we missed it, was The Great Gatsby they have on Broadway right
Oh, I
now.
didn't know that was playing.
Yeah, I didn't know either, otherwise we would have gone, but I saw it when we were about to leave, so anyway, yeah, it was great. But a lot going on in the markets last week, a real pullback, even on an intraday basis on Thursday. There were big swings in the market. It was down. The market was down by about 3.5%. These are the U.S. markets I'm speaking of right now, on an intraday basis. So there is some nervousness and jitteriness in the market right now, which I'll get to. But I also wanted to give an update on Google because that stock's been performing well. A lot of the big tech companies have not, so I want to touch on that. NVIDIA comes to mind there. A little bit on AI, and then Eli Lilly, so these GLP-1 drugs. And, I hope people don't get tired of hearing about them, whether it's from the health side or the investment side. But the reality is, to your point early on when we've talked about this, it's game changing. And so Eli Lilly actually just hit $1 trillion in market capitalization, which now puts it with the big boys in the tech sector. So I want to talk about that. And then I think you had a quick question on what stock splits are and does it matter? And then you also brought up to me an interesting article on TFSAs that you and I always talk about and the importance that people use them. What's on your docket?
So, because we didn't film last week, so this was, I guess, in the news over a week ago, but on how the FDA is going to move forward to remove the big black boxed warning on hormone replacement therapy products. So, they've had this extra boxed warning on the label since the Women's Health Initiative study, early 2000s. And even though they now know that that study had a lot of flaws, they haven't updated the scary labeling. So I want to talk about that and what that means.
Hmm.
And then I also wanted to talk about how we can figure out our own risk when it comes to deciding whether we're going to take hormones and some of the online calculators and tools that we can use to figure out our lifetime risk for breast cancer, whether it's a good idea for us to take hormone replacement therapy. So we'll get into that. And then I also wanted to talk about a biological age test that I did on myself. I waited like I've been like thinking about doing it, but I've been putting it off because I'm like afraid of the result. Like, what if it tells me I'm older than I am, and then it like, I have an identity crisis. But anyhow, so I finally did it,
Okay.
and
Wait, don't tell us yet.
I won't tell. Okay, stay tuned, and I'll
Okay,
reveal the
stay tuned.
results. Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Why don't we first just start with the markets? Have you been watching them over the past week or two?
Oh yeah, big time.
What did you
Because
see? Mhm.
well, it seems that I mean, yet the markets had a huge pullback. Crypto has really um, dropped or pulled back, and I was watching on Friday where it was confusing because everybody was waiting for Nvidia's earnings to come out, and the market was up on those earnings, and then all of a sudden it crashed down, and people are talking about, if we're in this AI bubble, what you know, should we all be scared? Should we all, are anyhow? So what do we need to do?
Yeah.
And so you and I talked about it a little bit, and I did nothing. I didn't change my portfolio in any way.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
so
Well,
yeah,
I think you're up to date on it, and the reality is, for people like yourself who are in the medical world or other industries, I think it's still important to just stay abreast. And you've been abreast for over a decade now in investing, and so you're still under you don't have to be on a trading desk to understand what you've just said,
yeah,
which I think is really important. So just to elaborate a little bit further on this, Nvidia, so this is the chip maker for the AI uh play, and all the companies that are employing AI, that their chips are the dominant chips because they're better than the other ones that are out there. They actually have about 80 to 90% market share, and which is incredible. And so they did report a quarter. It was a blowout quarter, meaning it was a great quarter, but the stock was actually down by 10%. And the reason is because people are concerned that, maybe all the growth expectations of this AI build out are already in the stock price, which you and I talked a lot about. And that also some of these, what are called hyperscalers, so the Microsofts and Amazons and Metas of the world that are building, and Googles that are actually building, the AI interface that you and I use, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini, which is Google's, or Grok, which is Twitter's, that they might create their own chips internally, customize their own chips. And so there are some analysts out there on Wall Street that say, well, if that's the case, then that 80 to 90% share that Nvidia has right now is probably going to be the peak. There's one analyst out there right now that actually has a sell on the stock at $100 price target, because they are concerned about that. So there's that aspect, and then there's also, did you ever watch the movie The Big Short?
yeah, of course, with that
Okay.
Michael Burry guy scaring
Yes.
everybody, and he was right predicting the financial crisis, and now he's scaring everybody by shorting Palantir and Nvidia.
That's right. So he is out there in the news and on Twitter. You can follow him. It's Michael Burry, Burry. His firm was called Scion Capital. He closed it in 2021, but yes, he made $100 million himself on shorting the subprime market and made about 700 million is the numbers I've seen for his investors. Again, going against the grain, having the contrarian view. So the contrarian view right now is to short Palantir and short. That means selling the stock. You think that's not going higher, and also to short Nvidia. And he brings up the fact that he's got some concerns with the accounting, some of the financial accounting. It goes into depreciation. I'm not going to bore our
Did
viewers
you
on
listen to
this.
All In this week?
I did.
Yeah, and they really talk about and debunk that, and they basically said that he got it wrong. Now, I don't
That,
know.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're out there saying he got it wrong. So interestingly, again, we're recording this on a Sunday night. Let's see, not that the all-in guys move the markets, but everybody's going to be doing their homework today and or on the weekend and wondering, should I the stock's down, should I go in and buy it? So let's watch what the stock does tomorrow. I haven't sold a share, although that's not true. And I haven't sold a share on this news. I did sell 25% of my position going back a couple months ago because I was up so significantly. So that's supposedly the prudent thing to do. But then the problem is the all in guys say, so the all in guys are these, wealthy billionaire kind of investors in the private equity VC world. they say let your winners ride. And so I'm so ticked off that I sold 25% of my Nvidia, but because it's gone up dramatically since that
Mhm.
time. But anyway, so the Nvidia and AI, and is it overbuilt, and are there bubble like expectations in it? That's one thing that's been weighing the market down. And then the other is that there are decreasing expectations that the US Federal Reserve will in fact cut rates once again in the December time period. And there's dissension within the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee, as to whether or not they should or should not cut rates. And remember that when we see lower rates, that tends to be risk on, so that helps the equity markets. And so, with that as a question mark, there's a lot of money managers out there and hedge funds who are saying, you know what, the market's up, very nicely this year. I'm going to lock in some of my gains. And so I think you're also starting to see the unwinding of of some
Right.
of those positions. Make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it does. I think there's a lot of people that are like, I've done really well this year, so let's take some profit, which means sell, sell, sell. And then that just makes it automatically cause the market to go down when really there may not be an actual problem with those companies. And it might actually be a buying opportunity when the prices actually go down to actually buy some more of those tech stocks that I think are so unbelievable. I mean, I don't know. The thing I'm worried about is as I use AI more and more. And like I'll just say it, like I just play with it. Like as I play with AI because I think it's
Yeah.
fun, you know, it's like I don't see how you're going to need graphic designers anymore, web builders anymore,
Yeah.
people that work in I worry more for like the jobs that are going to be lost. Like the way I'm kind of, it was funny, like the metaphor, I don't know if that's the right use of the word metaphor, but the analogy that I was sort of thinking about, I was checking out at Shoppers Drug Mart, and you know how it's all self checkout everywhere?
Yeah.
But then they have one actual person there because when everything goes wrong with the self checkout, you're like, hey, so you managed to lose the extra employees, but you still need that one person, So it's not like I think AI is going to take over all jobs because I still think you're going to need the person to help navigate it all, when you actually need to call that help desk, being like, okay, I messed up, like, what do I do
Yeah.
now? Like, I don't know how to price in the banana because it doesn't have a scanner code, and you need to ask the lady
Yeah.
for help. Anyhow, that's sort of how I see jobs and AI in the future, just us needing so many fewer, like,
Sure.
people working. Yeah.
Well, let me take it one step further on that analogy as it relates to going to the grocery store. Because I was saying the same thing, but slightly differently, which is, fast forward 2 to 3 years, you're at the grocery store. You know, I prefer a person because putting that, scanning everything myself, I find I don't like. Imagine a world where somehow there's the visualization of you, and this goes into privacy, of course, but you're taking the banana off the shelf, or you're putting it on the carrier, or in the grocery cart, and automatically it's calculating. And so you can even just walk out the door with all of your products and not even have to stop and pay at the cash register. And it takes it right out from your phone. It won't even
Well,
be
they
a
have
phone.
that at certain clothing stores. Like at
Do
certain
they?
big clothing stores. Yeah, like I think in Zara I forget where I was. I don't know if it was the US or in Europe, but I just had my stuff all there. You just put your stuff in the bin and then it just tells you how much it is.
Oh, I haven't seen
I
that.
don't know, it was crazy. And I will say this though, that Google, that is a
So
stock.
yeah,
Let's talk about
let's talk
yeah.
about Google. You could go ahead.
Well, it's just in terms of its Gemini, the latest version,
Yeah.
and what it can do with, I believe it's getting into the whole um, AI ability to build an app and a website, and also their marketing. Like you can just put in, they have a new thing, I think it's called Pomeli, and you can just put in your website. It will analyze your website and then come up with a marketing campaign for you. So I did this for Mitzvah Joy. I put in mitzvahjoy.com and then it
Amazing.
just came up with my campaign.
What?
Yep, free for now because they're just in testing mode. I'm sure they'll start charging soon. Yeah. Literally just like, come on. You would have to hire a marketing firm for who knows how much money and how long it would take for them to be able to come up with your campaign. They literally scanned your website and they just gave me ideas and how to post them.
Wow, it's
It was
incredible.
pretty unbelievable.
So talking about Google then, the stocks was up 8.4% over the past
Mhm.
week. This is post their Gemini 3 launch, so their AI tool or model. And the model apparently, their AI model has blown past all the competition. And they use this thing called, or the industry uses ARC AGI2 as a benchmark. And it tests fluid intelligence, which is the ability for a model to solve tasks and types of puzzles that it's never seen before.
Okay.
And so Google's Gemini beat everybody else on this. And then also Gemini 3 performance on advanced physics test was also a clear winner versus the others. So it seems to be moving ahead of a lot of the AI products out there. Apparently, Chat GPT 5 is fine, but not much of an improvement versus Chat GPT 4. And then there was a really interesting uh, chart I saw earlier that just went through like who's really winning. And right now
Google.
it's Google. And
Google's winning.
so remember Melissa, I think back in May you and I talked about Google and it was a huge underperformer versus the rest of the tech world. I don't think it had done anything on a year to date basis and I bought it and I bought it at $154 and
That's
it's
such a good buy.
yeah, and it's at $299.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is in a couple fronts. One is you don't have to find that $2 stock or the penny stock that's going to make you a millionaire. You can look at good companies, sit back and say, wait a second, Google hasn't performed like the other companies. So is there a valuation of buying opportunity? They own YouTube. They're probably really smart and might figure out this AI thing, and we just don't know it yet. And so I had a lot of different reasons. And then, to buy the stock. And so, you're up 94%. I haven't sold a share. And again, I'm like, do I let my winners run?
Yes.
And
Yes. Especially since Berkshire just bought in big position.
yeah, they bought as well. I don't care
I
so much
care.
about them.
I do.
Well, I don't think it's not Warren Buffett making the stock calls. He's got other
Well,
people
it
do.
doesn't matter. It's still his company, right? And I don't know. Like I'm always like I say this again and again. I look at what I use
Yes.
and what I'm like wowed by and what I see on my bills and
Yes.
you know,
So, Melissa, for you, I mean, it's trading at 29 times, which the market's at about, I don't know, 20, depending on which valuation, model you use, Case Schiller, it would be 26 times. But if you just look at a forward P, it's at about 23 times. So I don't know that you're paying that much for it.
yeah, I think it's great. I think I'm
Yeah. So you might want to buy it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, one other thing on AI, I just want to mention, I
One
saw
interesting
this.
thing though I wanted to say
Yeah.
is that I noticed recently when I was using ChatGPT, because that's still the AI chat that I use. I know you use Grok and
Yeah.
you know, but they're now launching a browser. So ChatGPT is trying to get me to use their browser called Atlas. So I think they're trying to compete with people Googling.
Right.
So we'll see how that ends up.
Well, and that's a good point. Like, even though Google is obviously doing very well, it's not to say the competition isn't fierce. And we could be talking 6 months from now, and I should have sold all my shares.
Nah.
Meh. Thing I saw this. I'm just going to bring it up. I haven't triple checked it, but the AI models out there, apparently they have false claims in over 33% of responses.
Huda. The
The models out there.
they're
I
saying
wanted to,
their responses aren't right, they're saying?
yeah, that they make mistakes.
Okay, fine. But let me tell you something. Okay. So my son does this thing called Spirit of Math. Okay. So it's this enrichment math program. And it's
Okay.
hard. Okay. Like I remember my daughter was doing this when she was young. And, like, the amount of homework you have to do is a lot, and then when COVID hit, it went to online, and then I was like, I quit. I couldn't manage it, first of all, with her when it was just in person. Now I had to deal with it online, and that so we were done, but then with Carter, he loves math, and so we started doing this homework. Anyhow, he brings home the homework, and they bring home some of these questions and these tests that they have to do. Well, they're, like, impossible, right? So, most of them some of them I will say I'm proud of myself that I can figure it out, his grade 4 spirit of math, but one of the questions I was like, "Huh?" So I just, like, took a picture of the question, uploaded it to ChatGPT, and then it told me step by step how to arrive at the answer. It made me into a tutor for my son.
Great.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, and make mistake, it didn't make a mistake.
Okay. You
I'm
didn't make
sure
a
it
mistake.
no,
Right.
I mean, like, trust me, I would have made more
Well,
mistakes.
I just think it's good to know, and it's good to know to make sure you check your work and triple check your work. That's, I guess, where I that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. You always have to check it, and I think it even puts that in there, like, because I think some people use it for medical I mean, lots of people use it for medical advice, for everything, and it has you have to understand that it
Yeah.
can make mistakes, and it doesn't know everything, and check, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I really want to buy a player piano and take,
Yeah.
piano lessons again. And I want to do because I want to continue to develop
Mhm.
my mind. And one of the other things, just as a side note, that they say you can do for that, just like helping your mind, is if you're right hand dominant, start to do things with your left hand. Like if you use your glass with your right hand, do it with your left hand.
Mhm.
So anyway, so that's part of I mean, I love music. That's why I really want to do it. But I need to find a piano. And so I put it in Chat GPT or Grok to try to find this player piano, and it came up with some places to call.
There you go.
I know. So great. Anyway, you
So let's
discussed.
talk. Okay, so last week, I think it was a week and a half ago, it was all over the news. I don't know if you saw it, that the FDA was moving to
Yes.
remove the black box warning that's on hormone replacement therapy products right
Right.
now. So, like, okay, what does that mean? So, I pulled up here an example of prometrium. This is a bioidentical progesterone. Okay, so I wanted to look and see what the black box warning currently looks like. Okay, so it says here in a big black box. Serious warning and precautions. The Women's Health Initiative that assess the health benefits and risks of oral combined estrogen plus progestin therapy and estrogen alone therapy in postmenopausal women. The trial indicated increased risk of myocardial infarction, heart attack, stroke, invasive breast cancer, pulmonary emboli, deep vein thrombosis in postmenopausal women receiving combined estrogen plus progestin. The WHI trial indicated increased risk of stroke and deep vein thrombosis in postmenopausal women with prior hysterectomy receiving estrogen alone. The Women's Health Initiative memory study, estrogen plus progestin, ancillary study of the WHI reported an increased risk of probable dementia, madness, they put in brackets, in postmenopausal women 65 years age or older. Therefore, you should highly consider the following. There is an increased risk of developing invasive breast cancer, heart attack, stroke, and blood clots in both lungs and large veins with the use of estrogen and progestin therapy.
Hmm.
There is an increased risk of stroke and blood clots in the large veins with the use of estrogen alone therapy. Estrogens, with or without progesterones, should not be used for the prevention of heart disease or stroke or dementia. Estrogens, with or without progesterones, should be used at the lowest effective dose, underlined, and for the shortest period of time, underlined, possible. Okay? In other
Okay.
words, scary. So if
No,
any
beyond.
beyond,
Beyond
like if anybody actually opens up these I don't know,
warnings.
warnings and reads them inside of medications, which some people do. Some people are just like, well, whatever. You would be very scared. And more than that, doctors are fearful to prescribe because they don't want, we all learn in medicine the goal of the Hippocratic Oath, like, do not cause harm. Right.
Right.
So, anyhow, so finally, they're now saying 25 years after the Women's Health Initiative study has been debunked and noted that it's been flawed, why haven't we changed those scary labels yet? And so they are going to. So
Hmm.
those big black box warning will be removed. Now, they'll still tell you that there can be increased risk of certain things and that you have to weigh risks and benefits with your doctor, but it's not going to be as scary. So I think that will really help more physicians feel comfortable prescribing hormone therapy
Sure.
to patients, and it'll make patients feel more comfortable in exploring these options and not feeling like they need to get off them as soon as possible.
Hmm. Well, it's no wonder that there's such a lack of knowledge amongst physicians about what to prescribe, given how awful that wording
Is.
was and is. And, and here we sit all these years later. Now it's just becoming something that obviously physicians have to be aware of, and that's still going to play in people's minds. Like I think, and there are still so many unknowns, particularly as I think as the medical community gets up to speed on this and what the best treatments are, and the questions are as well. If you don't have a lot of symptoms, do you still take something? So there's still a lot of
Mm.
research that needs to be done to answer those questions because obviously nothing has been researched really, except for some unique people that have been dedicated to this area for two
Well,
decades.
so the one thing they're gonna put on there now is that the caveat that if you are gonna start menopausal hormone therapy, ideally you wanna start it within 10 years of menopause and under the age of 60, whereas that was never highlighted in the previous, warning. But they found one of the flaws with the Women's Health Initiative is that they were starting patients on hormones that were more than 10 years out for menopause, and then they were older. So they believe that that might have higher risk than when you start it closer to the time of actually going through menopause, number 1. Also, in the Women's Health Initiative, they use synthetic hormones, estrogen and progestins, and now we prescribe bioidentical. So it's very different as well. So the
Mhm.
only big warning that's going to remain is that, or boxed warning, is that if you have not had a hysterectomy, meaning if you have a uterus, you should not take unopposed estrogen, meaning you need to have a progesterone along with the estrogen or a SERM that's going to block the effects.
Right.
So that will still remain,
Hmm.
and they'll get rid of use the lowest effective dose for as long, for as short as possible. They're going to get rid of, they're also going to differentiate between what route the hormone is taken. Obviously, taking a vaginal estrogen is much less risk than taking an oral form of the medication, so that they're going to differentiate between those two now. So it's going to allow more of a conversation between doctor and patient to say, okay,
Yeah.
this may really benefit you.
Right.
And, it can even help potentially. They're looking into, never mind, increase the risk of heart disease and dementia. There's actually some evidence that it may actually help prevent cardiovascular disease and dementia. So they're
Hmm.
going to, yeah, have
Yes.
conversation.
So it's an interesting time, as I'm sure it always is in medicine, and particularly now when you look at what's happening in women's health, but also what's happening. Let's shift the focus or the conversation to the GLP-1s again. And because those are two, for the hormones to help women, hopefully, that can be a game changer for allowing women to stay in the workforce when otherwise, if they weren't treated, they were suffering too much. I mean, that's, I think, 25% of the cases out there. And then when you look at the GLP-1s, you've talked so much on this podcast about the health benefits for reducing weight
Hmm.
and to
And
bringing,
and there's beyond benefits beyond that, reducing inflammation,
right.
potentially neurocognitive benefits,
Yeah.
reducing the risk of cardiovascular events. The FDA just now approved one of the GLP-1s for sleep apnea. So the indications for them are growing and growing. And another
Mhm.
important thing to point out is that if you are going through menopause and you're one of those people that hormone therapy is contraindicated for example, if you've had a personal history of breast cancer, okay, or if you've had a history of a blood clot, you are at higher risk for an adverse effect from being on hormone replacement therapy. So then what then? Well, these GLP-1 drugs may be an option for you to help you with inflammation, the weight, some of the mood changes, some of the other things that can happen with menopause if you can't
Mhm.
just rely on taking hormones.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the companies and the stocks, because as I mentioned in the beginning, Eli Lilly hit $1 trillion dollars in market capitalization. What's market capitalization? It's the number of shares outstanding. So how many pieces of the company are out there that people can own times the price of the share.
Hmm.
It's about $1 trillion. Dollars. And, you know, it, this has become, I don't know, a big deal in the market when Nvidia crossed $1 trillion and other big tech giants. So Eli Lilly has hit this $1 trillion market club, and it really has to do with their weight loss demand. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because, again, at this point, do you buy into Lilly? Because, I know, own and bought Novo Nordisk. And it's interesting because Novo what originally had the early lead with their Wegovy, and then they had their supply shortages, and then the view is that Eli Lilly was able to, create scale and distribution faster, uh, and then they have their, tirzepatide as well as the Mounjaro,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Sorry, Zepbound,
Zepbound is the weight indicated one, yeah.
right, and Mounjaro is for diabetes.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because when I was reading from obviously the analyst's perspective on this, the fact that the stock trades at 50 times earnings, so it's highly valued. Remember, the market's at about, let's just call it 24 for simplicity. So it's double the market. It points to investors' confidence in the long term metabolic health franchise that Eli Lilly has. And what I wanted to ask you about, which is so interesting to me, is the fact that they call this franchise metabolic.
Mhm.
So when you look at Lilly versus what's out there in the marketplace, does it change your metabolism, or is it what they you have, or is it just is appetite suppressant? I just thought the metabolic wording was interesting.
I think what they mean is metabolic is anything that's affected by insulin resistance. So when we talk about the metabolic syndrome, we're talking about the cluster of the combination of obesity with also high blood pressure, high cholesterol,
Okay.
these other things that are also affected by it. So meaning that some people might not only take tirzepatide for obesity, but they might also use it for diabetes, blood pressure management, decreased risk from cardiovascular events, those other things.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Hence the word franchise. Obviously, it encompasses a
Yeah.
lot. But just to be clear, it doesn't change. I mean, I guess it helps your metabolism if you're not as heavy and inflammation and
Well, it
less.
helps how your cells respond to insulin, which is involved with your metabolism.
Hmm,
So it doesn't make it so that it increases your metabolism so that you can eat more and burn it off,
okay.
but it does affect how you process food
Okay.
and how your
Yep.
cells respond to the insulin. And I mean, we're learning more, like so much more about it. Every few months, it seems like a new study comes out. But I still, when I look at who I'm prescribing what to, so I prescribe them all. I prescribe Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Ribelsis, which is the oral Ozempic. I prescribe them all. And when I choose which one I'm going to prescribe, you have to take a lot of things into consideration. Which one does the patient have coverage for? If they do, for example, if they're a diabetic, they're going to be covered for Ozempic or Mounjaro, but they're not for Wegovy or Zepbound, right?
Got it. Hmm.
So you want to look at that. You want to look at if price matters. So right now, in Canada at least, the Ozempic is less expensive than um, Mounjaro. You want to look at some people have when they use the Lilly products, the pen, they don't like the pen as much. It's not as easy to use as the Ozempic pen. Some people get
Hmm.
hives and rashes from it more so than the other one. So there's all sort, and then you want to look at. I often want to start people off with the less strong one, Ozempic, because if it's not working or if they're getting um, hitting a wall or a plateau on it, then I have nowhere to go. So then I switch them over
Ah.
to separate. So there's all sorts of different decisions. Some people swear they have side effects on one, not on the other. So
So, Melissa, I was again, kind of from like you owning Nova Nordis, which that stock got hit because of this competition. I was thinking in some ways, and I don't know because obviously they're going to be. I haven't looked at Novo, like I haven't looked at the fundamentals on Novo, but for you, you almost wonder, well, should you take a tax loss if you're at a loss on Novo
mhm.
and move it into Lilly, or do two companies win? But curious, what why is it that Lilly's tirzepatide, why does that seem to be more effective than Ozempic?
Because it works on two receptors instead of one.
Okay.
So Ozempic works on uh, GLP-1 agonist. Okay. So
Mhm.
does tirzepatide, Mounjaro. That's what we call these GLP-1 drugs. But Mounjaro also works on the GIP receptor. And apparently there's a new one coming out called retatrutide that works on 3 receptors. So that might even take over as there's supposed to be
Ooh,
stronger ones coming out even.
wow.
Yeah. So
Okay. Well, the story is not done, that's for sure.
have
I
you
was
seen have you seen the meme or the thing going around with like the Wicked cast with Ariana Grande and all the stars in the Wicked? How they're all shrinking and like they're all like, are late, they're all like Ozempic addicted. Like people are getting a little, some people go a little overboard. And that's one thing I'm watching,
yeah,
seeing, because, losing weight, being thin is healthy to a point, but not if you start losing your bone and losing your muscle
right.
and not giving your body nutrients that it needs for
Yeah.
other healthy things. So it's just one of those, you know,
Mhm.
but it's really going to affect the economy in huge ways. Like if this passes, this new Trump RX, where these drugs are going to be so much less expensive and covered by Medicare and Medicaid, and so much more of the American population can be on them, then they're going to need less money to afford food. They're just going to be eating less, and
Mm.
healthcare costs. It'd be interesting to see how it affects that and healthcare costs.
Well, and think about the different industries in there for stocks, right? Like it's going to affect restaurants. It's going to affect quick service. It's going to affect your Pepsis of the world because of their snack food division. So
Yes,
and even some would go so far as to say at some point it could even affect the fuel costs that airlines have to pay.
because people are lighter, not
That's
carrying
right.
around all these. There's real.
Absolutely. Interestingly, as well, with the pricing deal that Lilly did with the White House, there's of course concern that maybe it dents into the revenue if it's a lower price, but at the same time, too, it potentially expands their access to a larger market to the tune of about 40 million people. And that's just the number right now. I just want to point out as well because we just had all these companies, the big US companies and Canadian companies as well, reporting their quarterly earnings. We talk about this and why it matters, which is we get an update from the company. How did they do? Did they raise guidance because things are selling so well? So Eli Lilly, their revenue for their obesity and diabetic drugs was $10 billion. That's more than half the total of revenue. So their total revenue was $17.6 billion. Just think about that. Like these drug companies and how much money they make just in 3 months. 17.6 billion, 10 of which was for their obesity drugs.
Yeah.
And apparently the view is that they will have their oral pill out
Mhm.
early next year. So interesting. I don't own the company. Maybe I will. It's going to be interesting to see how all this evolves because clearly there's a massive race and who
Yeah.
wins it.
So there's a race. Well, race for these GLP-1 drugs. You mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a race
well,
in I. It feels like there's a race in AI. There's a race in
that's
this.
right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay. What's the other one on your docket?
Okay, so well, there's two more. So just quickly, when I was talking about breast cancer risk and how that might weigh into whether you want to take a menopausal hormone therapy. I was actually having a conversation with my aunt, and she's the one that told me. I don't know if you follow Olivia Munn on Instagram,
No.
but she had breast cancer uh, in her 40s, and it was quite unexpected. But the reason it was found out is because her doctor had her do this online risk calculator called Tyrer Cuzick breast cancer risk calculator. So if you go online, you can just Google that. On her page, she links to magview.com, which pulls up the risk calculator, and it tells you your 10-year risk of getting breast cancer and your lifetime risk. And it gives you a score. So I thought, you know what? I do mammograms every year, but I just am curious to see my score. So it asks you, your questions like obviously, if you've ever been diagnosed with any type of cancer before or breast cancer, your age, it asks you your weight because that's relevant to risk because the more fat you have, fat produces estrogen. The more estrogen you have, the higher risk for breast cancer. It asks you family history. It asks you smoking history. It asks you your race, Ashkenazi Jew, is at higher risk for breast cancer. It
Huh.
asks you if you've ever been diagnosed with dense breasts. because if you have dense breasts, it's less likely to be picked up on mammograms. Anyhow, it takes all these things into consideration and then it tells you your risk. And if you're above 20%, you're considered high risk and you can qualify for more screening. This is at least in the US than just a mammogram, but potentially genetic testing and
Hmm.
MRI. Okay. But if you're over 10%, then you're in sort of a moderate risk. And it may make you think twice about, screening options. For example, I finished mine, and if you have dense breasts, it will recommend um, doing an MRI if you can, or a more sensitive type of mammogram or a more sensitive ultrasound in
Hmm.
addition to the mammogram. So I just think it's a very good online free risk calculator that
Great.
everybody should do. So go
Great.
check it out. It's linked on Olivia Munn's page. You can go to madview.com or just type in Tyrer, Tyrer dash Kuzik breast cancer risk calculator and do
Okay.
it. Because you know what? We have to take ownership of our own health. And if you come up
Yeah.
with a risk score that was higher than you thought, go talk to your doctor about this because there are screening options beyond just mammogram.
Yeah.
Can be
That's
available for
great.
you.
Great to
Yeah.
know about.
And it's something that if you come back at high risk, and that's how hers was found. She did this. Hers was high risk. So they sent her for extra screening and her breast cancer was picked up.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you're someone that comes back with a higher risk, you may then want to talk to your doctor about whether that's going to affect your decision to take menopausal hormone therapy and which one,
Right.
because you may choose instead to take, we've talked about these before, like a Duaviv type drug, which doesn't have progesterone in it, which can increase the risk for breast cancer. So, anyhow, I just wanted to bring that up. And then I wanted to talk about my biological age
Right.
results. Okay, so first of all, like, what does that even mean, biological age? So, what it's looking at is your DNA methylation patterns. And by looking at that, they can predict if you're aging faster or slower than what your chronological age would indicate. So, I had to spit, I just used saliva on these, I don't know, this card and then send it into the lab. And it took a few weeks to come back. So, they
Where's the lab? Where's the lab? US or Canada?
US.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why it took a bit longer to come back. And it looked at my DNA. So it got my DNA from my saliva. But what it was looking at is epigenetics. So how your genes and DNA are expressed, meaning how they're turned off and on. And in order to see that, you look at how methylated the DNA is. And based on that, it can predict how you're aging. So how you're aging, it takes into account things like your nutrition, exercise, exposure to stress, exposure to toxins like air pollution, smoke, alcohol. It takes all these things into account and then tells you how you've done. So I was nervous because, okay, I've had some stress in my life. Okay.
Yeah.
We all have, but I've gone through some stressful times. Um, and I eat well and I exercise. But, and I don't smoke and I don't vape, but, I do enjoy, social drinks. And I know
Yeah.
in university, I certainly enjoyed partying a lot more. So I was looking at how it's going to came back. So it actually came back showing that I'm 5.5 years younger
Wow.
with
That's
my age.
amazing.
Hmm.
You so excited?
Well, at first I wanted to be like 10 years younger, but then it made me feel like it was accurate.
Yes.
Like it made me feel like I feel like based on I kind of think that that's where I should be. Like it said I'm
Yeah.
doing better than 82% of my peers. So
Wow.
I want to know who these 18% are.
Ah,
Like they've never
you
had a
know what?
drink in their life. They've
Yeah,
had no stress. They
you need to make
meditate every day.
the 80 call it the 18% club
Yeah.
and
I want to
find
find
them.
these people. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it does make sense though. Like to be 10 years younger would be a little
Uh-huh.
bit bizarre, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, probably not quite believable.
Yeah.
Because you do so many things right.
Hmm.
So it kind of I think that lines up. And by the way, to even be 5 years younger, is probably takes a lot of years of discipline.
Yeah, and it also goes to show how you can change. It's something that you can change, you know? And I think doing the test is interesting because you can sort of see how you're doing, but also can motivate you to continue these healthy lifestyle
Yeah.
habits because you want to see your score, you know, improve. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so it's just kind of like a fun little
That's so
test
great.
that I did.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's funny, Melissa, because when we were in New York, yesterday, and we did, I was down on Wall Street because that's my old stomping
Mhm.
ground. And it was really like I really took in this moment, which was, I'm down there, I'm strolling along with a cup of coffee, not a stress,
Yeah.
no stress. And I'm watching everybody else, you know, speed walking, which is
Yeah.
what I used to do because you're so stressful to get to the job, to get to the meeting, to get the right. Like it was, working on Wall Street for 14 years was
Mhm.
inordinately stressful. TV, 10 years, running up to the anchor desk, very stressful. And so it's not lost on me that I get to like, dilly dally down Wall Street. Like, and I do recognize, from a health perspective, that there are benefits to that. Now, sometimes I think I need to be walking faster, but I do a lot more, but in a
The
different
one
way.
thing that was good too was, yeah, like one thing it said up there. So chronic stress seems to be the thing that can alter these DNA methylation patterns the most, and sleep. So sleep, and I look at like things that I try to, and like even things you don't think about. So chronic stress, how sleep. I always try to get 8 hours of sleep a night, and I do a pretty good job of that. Not more, not less, but
Yep.
that amount. And socialization. So having a good network of family and friends and support, and that seems to really help with healthy aging. And I don't know, as we have to wrap because they just
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
dinner is ready upstairs. But I don't know if you saw Goldie Hawn. She just posted this video of her dancing, 80 years old. She is, to me, that's how I want to be at eight. Like she just has full of life still and just seems
Yeah.
so young to me because she's fun and like you can just see
Mhm.
that, you know?
Yeah. There's no difference in her. What
Yeah.
you see personality wise. So, okay. So then on that note, for next time, somebody I know wants one of these jumping things. And so I was reading on an anti-aging
Mhm.
whatever that jumping is supposed to be really good for you. So we can, and the fact that, because
Yeah.
I think when Goldie Hawn dances, she kind of jumps.
Jumps on the and she also jumps on that, mini trampoline. Yes,
Yeah.
let's
So,
talk about that next one on,
yeah. And then also the TFSA, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance because you sent me an article on that.
mhm,
Um, and
and
that's it.
Netflix and the stock split.
Oh, okay. And the stock, what a stock split is.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Have a great Monday.
Yes, have a good week. All right, talk to you next week.
Okay.